Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen.
Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth.
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political, sports, and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 46, so whether you're coming back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in.
Within the streets, trying to conquer all my dreams. Wax on, wax off everything, sensing that I'll never see hope. Life is but a dream, gotta work this as a team. But we've been fighting everything, I wonder if we'll ever be afloat. Yo, watch me get lost in the rays and the rain, watching the days fade away. I've been hiding my thoughts in the midst of the pain. Roll a little spliff that I'm saying, just for a bit of the day. Like that will really help me. I'm trying to change my thoughts and mind, and that ain't thinking healthy. Okay, look, scratch that off track, and I'm trying not to look backwards. No more rolling, smoking salads. I'm trying to find me a balance. No more drinking out of chalice. I'm lower than all the crowd is, and I'm grounding myself today. So no more thinking wild and childish, cause I got me a plan today. Give it up to the man today. I'm not like who I am today, but I know that I'll pass one day. I'm sick of fighting myself today. Think of helping myself today. Long as I'm on my path and stick to the plan and forget I'm the man, I'm safe. Cause God, you know I'm conceited, and I can't fight all of my demons. Realistically, I'm a weakling with a pool of sharks in the deep end. Ain't no fighting life unless you're leaving.
That was a taste of Sense by Miggy C. My guest tonight is recording artist, recovering addict, all-around good guy, and my friend Miggy C from La Familia Music Group, joining us all the way from beautiful Colorado. Miggy, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me, dude. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I'm stoked to have you hear some of your story, to share your music with our audience. And you're the second guest in a row that we've had on from one of my favorite states, Colorado. So I'm pumped about that too.
That's right. Hell yeah.
Well, Miggy, to start off, why don't you just introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Miggy C, professionally known as Miggy C. I'm a recording artist affiliated with La Familia Music Group out here in Montrose, Colorado. I'm 24 years old, a recovering addict, and, yeah, man, I've been doing everything.
Yeah, and, you say that you're a recovering addict. How long have you been in recovery, and what kind of addictions are you recovering from?
So I just hit a milestone of 3 years in recovery.
That's what's
on
up.
the 4th of July.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm basically recovering from everything, but my main drug of choice was heroin, and so yeah, I've been completely clean. I don't touch anything, alcohol, weed, nothing, and it's been a struggle for sure, but that's what I'm recovering from.
Yeah, for sure. That's really awesome. Yeah, I knew you, for those that are listening, I knew Miggy as a kid. And it's cool to keep up with him on Facebook and just see his growth and the man that he's becoming as an adult. But Miggy, take us back to your childhood. What were things like for you growing up?
So for me, growing up, it was I didn't have a bad childhood. So for me being in recovery, I get to share that side of my story with everybody because everybody's story looks a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And addiction doesn't discriminate. So that's what's cool is I get to share my story, and hopefully somebody else with a similar experience connects with what I say and then realize they're not alone. But yeah, I mean, came from a family with a single mother. Go figure. But I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. My mom always provided for me, and then eventually my sister was born, and she always provided for both of us. My mom was special needs, and so at a certain age, I think I was 11. By age 11, I knew I was as smart as, if not smarter than my mom. And so I took advantage of that, and that's kind of where my disease of addiction kind of stemmed from.
Yeah.
Like just my character defects and all that. But I mean, I had my grandparents there. They were always there. They were always very supportive. Always stepped in to help my mom parent me when I was acting out, just being a bad kid. And I was always like the class clown growing up because I mean, I'm still funny, but I would always just crack jokes. And I think part of that comes from my insecurities of not feeling a part of. And with that, I found some outlet for me to become like cool in a sense, I don't know. It was weird. It was like my defense mechanism of me feeling lonely. Like, oh, okay, I feel lonely. Let me crack a joke, get everybody to laugh with me, and then realize I'm funny. Yeah. And I got in trouble a lot because of that, because I was disruptive and not also a good student. But, and I didn't realize how serious that was until I got older. I like looking back on it now that I'm an adult, I get to see those things and kind of get an idea of where all these unhealthy ways of coping developed. And so yeah, with me being younger, I grew up in school. I got suspended a few times for fights. I didn't always being disruptive. Didn't really get the best grades, but I wasn't stupid. I paid attention. I just didn't like doing homework. And again, back to my mom, she always tried her best with me. She always tried to parent me, and I took advantage of it. I was pretty rough on her growing up. Now that I see it, I was, and she was a single mom. So my dad got deported when I was about 2 years old, and yeah, so it was just her and my grandparents. And my grandparents didn't live with us, so they would only come on certain days. And when they came, I'd act right in front of them, and then as soon as they left, I'd go back to being bad. Right. And it was just a constant cycle. But I mean, moral of that story is my childhood wasn't bad. I just got what I wanted. Therefore, it eventually turned into bad.
Yeah. And I really think that's important. One thing that you said, addiction doesn't discriminate. That's something that people need to understand and know and hear, because a lot of times, when we hear from folks that they're struggling with addiction, it is because they came from a very broken and disjointed and traumatic childhood, and that's real. But like you said, sometimes you can have a good childhood and have support growing up and still wind up in that situation.
Right, exactly. And I was always taught this as soon as I started like coming in and out of the rooms of, I go to a 12-step program, NA, and that's what helps me stay clean a day. And from like my first rehab, I always learned that like this is, everybody in this room right now with me has one common denominator, and that we're all addicts.
Right.
But our stories are all like the polar opposite. And so from that, I learned like I'm nothing special. This disease just, it doesn't discriminate. And yeah, it's a tough one. I have a soft spot for people in recovery, you know, active addiction, like people still using. Like I have a soft spot because I was there.
Yeah.
And I now have a soft spot for families that have family members also in active addiction, because you don't really get to see that part of it until you get clean. You don't get to see how much damage you did, you know?
Right.
Because it's a family disease at the end of the day. Like, it doesn't just affect the person using it. It affects everybody around them.
Yeah.
And that was a tough pill to swallow, getting clean.
Yeah, I can imagine. My father-in-law, my wife was on the show, I think episode 41, and she shared her story of growing up with an alcoholic father and abusive mother. And I know even when her and I started dating, and then in the beginning of our marriage, before he eventually passed away, he did not stay clean for very long. He would for a period of time, and then he'd start drinking again. But I have that soft spot as well, because I have seen the effect that had on my wife and on her brothers, and how it affected every aspect of their childhood, of their thinking, of their relationships. But also it's so powerful and transformative to see that all three of them have killed the cycle and have made it to adulthood and are working on themselves and are improving. And I relate to you, because growing up, I was a class clown also. I always wanted to have the attention and have people laughing. I use that as a defense mechanism. And even now, you know, if I'm going through trauma or if I'm grieving, I go to humor. That's my way to escape or to cover up a lot of times. Miggy, when were you first introduced to drugs, and what led to you finding yourself in a place of addiction?
You know, I was young, and they always say, like, curiosity killed the cat. And that's how it was for me. Like, and I think for most addicts, like, they don't set out and say, you know, I'm going to try drugs today. It's kind of just, it could be a number of things, but for me personally, what you hear a lot is not necessarily peer pressure, but I was around some people that were doing it, and I wanted to fit in, you know? It wasn't pressured onto me, but the pressure was more internal of me wanting to be like them. And so, and accepted. So again, yeah, there's that wanting to be accepted. And I was actually with my older cousin. I remember it vividly, which is crazy. It was at her house, got to stay the night at her house, and we were at their little local park, and her and her older friend were smoking, and I was chilling with them, and then, you know, I was able and ended up smoking weed, and it started off innocent like that, right? Like, yeah, I personally think that marijuana could be a gateway drug. Now I think there's, you know, medicinal purposes, all that.
Sure.
Cool, that's good if you're using it as intended, but for me, it was truly a gateway drug. Now that I look back, you know, and it all started from there. I was 11 years old when I first smoked weed, and then from there I was off to the races. I just kept smoking and smoking, and back to me being growing up with my mom. Growing up with my mom, I realized, like, I can get away with a lot, and so at first I was hiding it from her. And then sooner or later, I told her I was, and that's just what it was. She was, she's special needs, so she was slow but smart. She was smart, and you know, she just couldn't write real well, and couldn't spell. She was a character, but she was smart. She was so smart, and but very easily manipulated, and I was very manipulative. So I was, pushing her around. Just basically said, like, you know, I'm smoking weed now, and it is what it is. Yeah. And eventually, I got her to start smoking which wasn't a bad thing in her part, because she ended up getting off of her pain pills, but she was always having like bad feet problem, bad migraines, and so she was prescribed Tramadol, Vicodin, Percocet, all those hard drugs.
Yep.
And then after I got to a certain age, I think I was around 13 years old, I had some older homies that were doing those pills, and me, I was still just smoking weed, and they would come and ask me and the homies like, hey, you guys know where to get such and such? And I was like, well, I thought about it. I was like, my mom's prescribed that stuff. So stole it from my mom, sold it to the older homies so that I had more money to get weed. And it started off like that. And then again, curiosity killed the cat. I was like, why are these guys buying this stuff from me so much? You know, I was like, there's something with it.
Yeah.
So one day another older cousin had came over, and he had some Tramadol, which is like low. It's like they give it to dogs, but they also give it to like older people, and if you take enough of it, it'll mess you up. And he came over, me and my friends were in my room smoking weed, and he's like, you guys want to try these? Gave us each 3, and it was like, chew them up, swallow them, and then, you know, kick back. And I think we all passed out, and then woke up like the next morning, and we're like, and me, I was like, that was great, let's do that again. And that moment right there started my love for opiates.
Yeah.
You know, getting all groggy and incoherent and just passing out. Essentially, passing out was like the main thing of it that I was attracted to.
And why was that? Was it a form of escape? Was it what about that experience was attractive to you?
You know, when I look back on it now, I'm able to see why, like deep down, why it was so good to me. But at the time, it was just like right before you fall asleep. Yeah. You just feel so, your body's just numb, and you feel like euphoric. And so I thought that was the high I was chasing, but sooner or later it was something that was like, that I grew dependent on. And then looking back on it now, I realize a lot of it, because after, you know, once it progressed, I started doing shady stuff. I started messing up. I started getting in trouble with the law. I started hurting my family. I started lying, cheating, you know, doing all this bad stuff. And at that point, you realize, oh shit, like my life is in shambles. I'm doing all this bad stuff, but I still need to get high. And then when you get high, like for me, when I was getting high at that point, and my life was messed up, my main point was to get high so that I can avoid that. I can avoid feeling guilty. I can avoid feeling that shame. I can avoid my responsibilities. I can avoid just life in general. Like if I'm sleeping, I have no worries, right? I can't think of anything because I'm asleep. Right. And eventually, like that's what it was. It was escape from all reality, because you know, you can't touch me if I'm asleep. And
so for you, I often hear people in recovery talk about how things progress, and how, you know, you become accustomed to whatever it is that's getting you high, and after some period of time, it begins to take harder drugs, larger doses. It takes more to get that same feeling. Was that true in your experience as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it started off with, like, I mean, even when it was just weed, right? Yeah. I was smoking weed, and then sooner or later, like I would smoke a bowl, and then I'm high as hell for all day. Then it turned to, well, I need to smoke a gram to get high, and then I need to smoke an 8 to get high, and then now I'm selling weed just so that I could pay for my addiction. And then it goes up to concentrates, wax, and stuff like that. And then when I started doing pills, it went from tramadol to 5 milligram Percocet to 10 milligram Percocet to, you know, and then from there it just kept progressing and progressing. And then about age 17, I went to Job Corps because I had got sick of it. Like, I got sick of me having to take so many pills, and I got sick of how I was treating my mom and my family. Like, and this is just doing pills. I remember it. I broke down one night, and I because I always knew what was right and wrong. Like, I have my own set of morals, right?
Sure.
And when I break those because of my addiction, I still feel like shit afterwards, you know, but I just get high to get rid of that feeling. And I remember one night me and my mom were arguing, and, you know, I told her I hate her, and I just cried, and I said, you know, like, I wish I wasn't here, you know, and I started cutting, and I started, you know, like, I remember I was like beating myself like with the refrigerator door, like my head in the refrigerator, and it was really dramatic. And went back into the garage, and I remember I was just like, I'm messing up. Like, this is crazy to be doing this at like at 16 years old.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not right. And I was like, I need to do something, because at that time I wasn't going to school either. I kind of just dropped out after my sophomore year. So I was like, and my cousin had went to Job Corps, and we were both talking about going to Job Corps, and she had already left. And so I was like, I need to go. And she went to the one in Ronan, Montana, Kicking Horse Job Corps, and that's where I went to.
Wow.
Eventually I got accepted. They took me. And of course, being an addict, I took as many pills as I could before the flight to get there. I think I took it was like 21, or it was a bunch of pills to get there, and it was dangerous. Like, it's sick when I look back on it. But I got there, yeah, and they have 2 breaks when you're in Job Corps, especially if you get sent out of state, because they pay for everything, flights and stuff like that. But they have 2 breaks that they'll send you back home for a week, and that's summer and winter break. And I think it was summer break. It was one of the 2, summer or winter break. And I went back home, and I was excited to go back home because I knew what was there waiting for me. And like I said with my mom, and I don't ever blame her for anything, because at the end of the day, I'm a human being with my own mind, right? So
absolutely.
But I had so much control over my mom. This is how sick it was. I had so much control over my mom that when I was getting ready to come back home, I would call my mom and say, hey, you still got, like, I know when your refill date is for your pills. You save those for me. I will be there in a week. Save those for me. And this me manipulator, I'll save those for me, and I will sell them when I get there, and we'll get a bunch of weed, you know. And her, she's like, all right, I'll smoke weed, you know, like.
Yeah.
And me, I'm just like, no, I'm gonna take all those and figure out some way to get us some weed. And it was literally that sick. But when I got home, you know, I did that. So went and hung out with the homies, and by then they were already doing meth and heroin, and I didn't know until I got there. And again, wanting to be accepted, I was like, well, you guys are doing this new stuff, I guess I'll try it. And I just remember one of my friends handing me a foil with a little piece of black thing on there, told me to snail trail it and hit it, and then I passed out. And then woke up the next morning, some random chick's house, and again, it's that euphoric feeling, and I was like, what was that? I want to do that again. And it was like the last time, but 10 times enhanced. And I was like, what was that? And that was heroin.
Wow. Yeah. And just hearing you talk about, the thought process and where your head was at, thinking about a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, sophomore in high school, going through those things, considering those things, feeling that way, that's a lot for a kid to handle.
Right.
At what point did you know, like, hey, I've really got a problem?
I think, so when I really realized I had a problem was when I was doing pills, right before I went to Job Corps. When I had that episode, that manic episode, I was just like, dude, like, are you serious? Like, this is not what my life probably should be. Like, this is not ideal.
Right.
This is kind of messed up, pretty messed up, you know? And I knew it wasn't normal. I knew it wasn't right. And so that's why I was like, I should just get out of town. Because that was my first thought. Like, I'll get out of town, I'm good, you know? I'll get off pills for a little bit, I'm good. And that's when I was, like, I don't want to, how do I say, like, naive or...
Yeah.
To addiction. I didn't know what it really, I didn't fully comprehend or even know about it. I wasn't introduced to what addiction was. I just knew that what I was doing wasn't necessarily working for me in my favor. So going off to Job Corps, I thought, you know, and I was still smoking weed in Job Corps, but it was very minimal or whatever. It wasn't a lot because I was out of state.
Right.
It was super hard. So it was just, for the most part, I was quote unquote sober, but and I felt better during that time I was there. Like, I was getting my education back, I was meeting new friends, I was being social without the use of drugs.
Right.
But it was short lived because something inside knew that I was craving something, like craving that high again, and so I buckled down with the schooling. I was like, what do I have to do to get out of here, basically? Like, what do I have to do to graduate the quickest? And I did that. So I graduated within like 7 months.
Wow.
And went back home. And going back home was back to the races. It wasn't, you know, it definitely wasn't slowed up. They say in addiction, like, and with addiction and relapse, like, if you go back out and you're trying to do more research and you relapse, you're more than likely going to pick up right where you left off. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't like restart. You usually pick up right back where you left off, and that's so true in my story. You know, it just, it was bad. It ended up getting bad again. And then from that point, once I started doing heroin, I started trying meth and stuff. And I was just smoking at this point. But I realized, like, once I lost my car, like it literally got so serious to, like, and you hear it in stories or books or like movies, and you're never really sure, like, damn, like it got that bad, like,
right.
It gets that bad. I remember I came home from Job Corps, and although I was off to the races again, I was still like kind of trying to get my life together. So I immediately got like a job when I got home. I immediately bought like a beater car when I got home, you know, doing all those right things, you know, 17, still doing and trying to play it off.
Right.
And, but it was short lived. Ended up, losing my car. Well, not losing it. I sold it for heroin. And then just, you know, in and out all the time. I moved out, I remember, from my mom's house. And that was like for a couple months because the people I moved in with was also using. And so it was just a trap house.
Yeah.
And for the first like couple months, I was just giving this chick her rent money because I wasn't on the lease. And I remember waking up one day and she's like, yeah, we have to be out of here by noon. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, she just said, "I'm sorry."
Mm.
And so I knew she had been pocketing my rent money and not paying her own to feed her addiction.
Yeah.
And so it was bad. So it was right back home to mom's, and mom's was no better.
Yeah. And you were still so young at this point. You know, you talk about being naive, and I'm sure that's true, but at the same time, as a 17-year-old, I mean, you're a kid. I mean, there's no way for you to have a grasp or an understanding of the reality of the decisions that you were making. I mean, on the one hand, yes, you're responsible at age 17 for your own decisions, but your brain's not even fully formed. I mean, you're a kid. So how, at that point in your life, after Job Corps, in and out of mom's house, still in the throes of addiction, still very young, how was addiction affecting you on a daily basis?
At that point, like, I was a heavy boy. Like, I was heavy before I started doing pills, and I lost weight like that. I mean, I think I was at 240 pounds when I'm at my heaviest, and then when I started doing drugs, I dropped down to 130.
Wow.
I remember that was probably like the lowest.
That's my high school weight, dude. I'm a stick figure.
That's crazy.
It's not healthy.
That's great. Like, I look back at some of my pictures and I'm like, was I really that small? Like, because and it never worked out ever, right? Like, never worked out a day in my life. I wasn't doing no runs.
Right.
It was strictly just a drug diet.
Mm.
And so as far as that goes, like, I mean, losing weight, doing so much opiates, like, you get backed up, and you don't really, like, you get super, like, constipated, like, you won't use the bathroom, you won't go number 2.
Yeah.
So, like, that was really bad. Like, picking at my face, kind of, not too much, but, like, also, like I like to be clean cut. And so my hair was out of control when I was using, because I just, I wanted $20 for a haircut. No, I'll just spend $20 on some drugs. So, like, as far as, like, my appearance, like, I didn't care too much. Like, I'd always try to be clean cut. Like, I'll put on a button shirt, but I still look smoked out.
Yeah.
You know? And then my mental health, like, again, it goes back to the same thing with me and you, and it's always been there, is, like, I'm a pretty optimistic guy, with or without drugs. So I always try to find the silver lining, or act like it's all good. Like, I could be in fire, and I'm in a pit of fire, and I'm smiling, just trying to hold on. And it was like my way of getting through it. So my mental health was definitely taking a toll. I just wouldn't let you know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't let you know that. But when it, behind closed doors, or when it came to that point, my breaking point, you would know.
Yep.
But I kept it inside for the most part. I was pretty angry, though. I was a lot more angry when I was using. I feel like opiates, the best way for me to explain it is, when I was on opiates, I always thought I was right, no matter what, with anything. Like, you could just tell me, like, you could tell me the sky is red, and I tell you, and I tell you it's purple, and then if we keep arguing and arguing, I'm gonna get pissed off, and I'm gonna make you, and I'm gonna let you know, and I'm gonna make you feel stupid.
Yeah.
And I was so angry, like, to everybody, except for the people that were helping me get high, right?
Yeah.
Like, those people I'll be nice to, but, like, my mom, my little sister, my grandparents, even the girls I was with, I was rude, and so that it affected me that way, you know, and I was depressed. I was sad, because I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I didn't really know how to stop.
Yeah. And I remember what you're saying. I remember that. I remember seeing that in my father-in-law a lot, that when he was drinking, he had this edge about him. that wasn't naturally a part of his personality, but that I believe came from the addiction, that the littlest things would set him off. He would be so argumentative, so self-assured. When he was sober, he was a very light person, very lighthearted, very humorous, very, playful. When he was drinking, that part of him went away. And I hear you expressing things like that as well. For you, Miggy, what did rock bottom look like?
Ooh. So rock bottom was, and I say this like just being for mine, because everybody's rock bottom looks different.
Yeah.
And I was also told, because I thought I had hit my rock bottom before my rock bottom, and everybody's rock bottom looks different, and us as addicts, we can get resourceful, and we'll keep digging when we're in that active addiction. And I want to say my rock bottom didn't get me clean. I'll say it like that. My rock bottom didn't get me clean, but when I was at my lowest, I was homeless in Denver, panhandling, flying a sign, and sleeping on motel roofs. That was
wow.
That was the lowest. There's a street in downtown Denver. There's Colfax and Broadway. I've literally slept on that street in a sleeping bag with a group of homeless people. Like, that was my lowest. And when I tell people that, they're like, because if you know me, Wes, you knew me from, being a kid. You just can't see it. You're like, what?
It's hard to hear it.
How?
Yeah.
Why? And
how old were you at that point?
I was 20. I was 20 years old.
Wow. Man. Yeah, that's hard to fathom. It really is. Because you were knowing you at, like, I don't know, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there. You were such a light kid, and you just always had a smile, always very positive, always very encouraging, always smarter than you let on. You would kind of play like you didn't know something, but like I always could see that there was more going on inside of you than what you let others into. But yeah, that's hard to fathom and hard to comprehend, and even just hard to hear that you went through all that. But even to hear you say that even your rock bottom didn't made you decide to get clean. So what, for you, Miggy, what finally did it? What made you decide to get clean for good?
What's crazy is like truly, like I've always wanted, like once I went to my first rehab and I got back out and I started using again. I've been to 5 rehabs since I was 17 years old.
Wow.
So that just shows how willing I was at the time, right? But this last time, I truly, like in the back of my mind, I want to get clean. I want to get my life together, but I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I always, and going in and out of rehabs, I realized like I kind of feel like I know how to do it, but how do I do it, right? I see it working for other people, but it's not working for me. What's wrong with me? And truth is, I wasn't applying myself at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I wasn't doing what was suggested of me, and what people that it was working for, I wasn't doing what they suggested. Or if I was doing it, I was half-assing it.
Yeah.
They're saying AA, half measures avail us nothing, and that was me.
Say that one more time, Miggy.
In AA, there's a popular saying, it's half measures avail us nothing.
Wow. That's so good.
And for me, and for me, like, I was half measure Miguel at the time. Like, I would have one foot in recovery and one foot in addiction.
Yeah.
You can't sit on the fence with this. It's life or death. This is how I live today. I truly think it's life or death for me.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, this last time, I got arrested in Glenwood. I was facing felony charges, and I was on my way home. I was on my way home from Denver on the bus, and my grandparents were coming to pick me up. And I had just finished the last of my dope, and I had. I'm gonna get real with you right now, Wes. I just got done shooting up. Like I've upgraded to shooting up now.
Yeah.
I got the rest of my dope. I got dropped off in Glenwood, and the next bus wasn't going to come till the next morning, and I didn't want to wait. So I called my grandparents. I was like, will you guys pick me up, please? And they're like, all right, we'll come first thing in the morning. And so I was just walking around Glenwood at that time with my bags, which wasn't anything new to me. I go to, I think it was a Come and Go gas station, and I still had a little bit left. I seen one of the night shift persons. I was like, hey, dude, I'm waiting for my ride. Can I just chill in here? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So I'm in the bathroom the whole time, doing my thing. And then finish it. And I was so sick, so delusional, and just wasn't thinking that I had ditched my paraphernalia into the baby changing little gig that they have in the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And I just walked off, and right next door was a Dairy Queen. And I mean right next door, and it's like 6 a.m, so all the truckers, everybody, all the early morning birds are pulling up, going in and out. So I just went to the little patio they had right there, and I was just nodding off right there in broad daylight. And a mom and her son had went into the bathroom, and they used the changing station, and boom, a needle falls out. And so she runs to tell the manager, and manager was like, I know exactly who that was. And they call the cops, and they look out, and they're like, oh, there he is right there, easy. So I wake up to cops surrounding me, basically saying, hey, are you all right? And get hemmed up. And literally, like I said, my grandparents were on their way. My grandparents pulled up right as I was getting arrested. So
Wow.
it's literally like out of a movie. Like,
Yeah.
I can't make this stuff up. And my grandma's just yelling at me like, I hope they keep you in there, and, I thought you were doing better. You lied to us. And I was in there for about a week. And at this point I'm withdrawing hard. And I'm just, I don't know. I don't know what else to do. I keep calling my grandparents. They're not answering because they know who it is. They know what I'm going to ask. They don't want anything to do with it. And so after a week, my grandma finally answers. She says, what do you want? I'm like, Grandma, like, get me out. Like, I'm going to do better. We call it the dope fiend prayer.
Yeah.
And I promise I'm going to do better this time, just talking a good one. And my grandma's like, they're like, and this is how God works. My aunt is also a recovering addict, has 2 weeks ahead of me, actually.
Wow, no kidding.
2 weeks ahead of me as far as clean time. She's also got 3 years. Shout out to my auntie.
Absolutely.
And she's been in and out of it. And she went to a rehab in Denver, Salvation Army, Christian-based. And they have captains that go from each, or captains, or they call it lieutenant. And those are it's usually a couple that runs the ARC, Adult Rehabilitation Center. And my aunt was at one, and she had met these lieutenants at the time, Tanya and Tim, who were also recovering addicts, ran the whole rehab. Just like in the Army, they get stationed to different places and moved and basically deployed to different ARCs. Like, they swap them around. And she'd already graduated from it like years ago. And by the time I was in jail, that one in Denver had been closed down. but my aunt was still clean, and my aunt was still in contact with those lieutenants. And during that week of me calling my grandparents and them, they were working on something for me. And so my grandma reached out to my aunt, like, hey, Miguel's back in jail. Where did you go? Like, where could we send this kid? And my aunt got a hold of her old lieutenants. They're like, yeah, we're over here in Santa Monica, California now. If you can get him on a bus and he can piss clean, we got a bed for him. When my grandma answered the phone for me, she's like, we got a program for you to go to, but the only way we're getting you out is if you agree to go to that program. We're going to make sure the judge sends you to that program. And so me being in jail and just withdrawing, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll do whatever.
Yeah, just get me out of here.
Just get me out of here. And so in my next court hearing, they show up, and basically we talk to the judge, and we're like, yeah, my grandparents are like, we're willing to, you know, co-sign for this if you send him to a rehab. And basically from there, they're like, okay, well, what program do you have in mind? And so we told them, and then they're like, okay, well, now this program that you want to go to, or your grandparents want you to go to, is court ordered. So
Game changer.
There's that. So they got me out that day, and I was just waiting like a week to, I think it was a week or maybe 2 weeks. I was out until I went. And during that time, I had overdosed for my first time. Because I'm sick still, right, Wes? Like I'm still sick. And again, I didn't want this in the first place. Like I didn't get hemmed up and then think, oh, I think now it's time to go to rehab. Like I was just trying to get out, and whatever my grandparents said I would do in order to get out so I can get high. And so I went home. And I remember it. I remember it vividly, and I don't say that's my rock bottom, because I feel like when I was panhandling and stuff, like I felt so degraded at that point. Like that feels like my rock bottom. Yeah. But you know, overdosing is definitely not small as well. Throughout my whole time of using, I had never overdosed. I've only done it once, and that was right before I got clean, and that scared everybody.
Yeah, no kidding. That's dangerous stuff, man.
It was scary.
And I know for you this is certainly true. It's true for anybody I know that is in recovery. It's a difficult process to get clean. You know, you've already talked about being in and out of 5 different rehabs, spending time in jail, overdosing. So you get sent to California. What resources did you find? What experience did you have? What was most helpful to you in being able to actually sustain being clean?
Narcotics Anonymous.
So when you got to California, is that when you first experienced an NA meeting for the first time?
No, actually my first, and this is what. And when I look back on like my whole story, I get to see God working in my life, even in the midst of all the darkness, right? I get to start putting the pieces together and being like, oh, like, you know how they say, like there's someone in the fire?
Yeah.
Like that, I feel that because like the seed was planted. The seed was planted the first time I went to rehab, Wes. Like it was planted. Like I knew, although I was 18, I knew I knew that people were getting clean, and I knew there was a way out. I just couldn't fully grasp it, and I couldn't, and I wasn't willing at that time. I just wasn't willing, and you know, it's my resources today come from Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm so grateful for that. But I went to my first NA meeting when I was 18, and that was in Denver, but I wasn't paying attention, You know, I was just there, and I was just like, oh, whatever. You know, I was just playing the part. But the seed was planted to where I was like, subconsciously, I knew that people were actually getting clean. I just didn't think it'd work for me.
It wasn't reality for you yet.
Correct, yeah.
So you get to California, and this is the time that things are different for you and that you start to experience life again in a new way. Share with us about that experience and about what shifted for you or what changed for you.
It's a beautiful thing. So I didn't go there in this, like, I was playing the part. I wanted to make sure I went to rehab, so I got the courts off my back.
Yeah, court ordered.
I wanted to make sure my grandparents thought I was good. My mom thought I was good, right? And so I was just playing the part again. I went there and I pissed dirty because I was getting high the whole way there. And so my first night in LA, in Santa Monica, I was homeless because they were like, we can't let you in, but if you drink a bunch of water and come back tomorrow, we'll try to get you in.
Wow.
And so, yeah, my first night there, never been to California in my life. My first night there, I'm homeless, sleeping on the streets. Again, it was nothing new to me, so I just threw on like 5 t-shirts and 5 pants and, you know, set up shop. But, you know, it eventually... It just started to develop while I was being there. Because when I got there, and I mean, I love California, man. The recovery is something else out there, in a good way. It's just, it's so loud, and it's so empowering. It's just a great thing because it's huge. It's huge out there, and just as well as addiction. You know, so you get to see both. And so when I got there, and this is again, God working. I got there, I was there it's a 6-month program if you do it right and you don't get in trouble.
Okay.
I got there 2 months, I'm in there 2 months, and by that time I'm able to check out, and I started going to the gas station because a bunch of other guys there, a group of us, were going to the gas station and getting kratom and taking a bunch of kratom pills. Now, kratom's sold at a gas station, but at the end of the day, you take enough of those pills, the herb, it's going to make you feel, it's going to alter your mind.
Yeah.
Mind-altering substance. You're getting high.
That you can buy from a gas station.
Yeah. And you know, and this isn't my drug of choice, but I'm so sick that I'm gonna take whatever I can get right now. Whatever I could do, I'm gonna take whatever. And they caught wind of it, and they pulled a group of us aside individually. My intake coordinator, he's like, "Look, dude," he's like, "we're gonna hit you with the kratom test," and he's like, "only you know." He's like, "You can." He's like, "You're court ordered." He said, "You can either take this kratom test, hope it comes back clean and you're good, but if it comes back dirty, we're kicking you out for 30 days at least, and we're calling the courts and telling them we kicked you out because you popped dirty."
Wow.
Or you can walk out right now, we'll just mark it down as if you walked out of the program, and then from there you have to be out for 30 days, but you can come back in 30 days and we'll redo this. And at this point I had a sponsor. If those in the new rooms and in 12-step programs know what a sponsor is. My sponsor from NA was very connected with the Salvation Army there.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did we call it an H&I panel. He did his on Friday there, which was our little Narcotics Anonymous meeting actually in the rehab. And so, anyways, I chose to leave because I was like, I'm going to just leave, and from there I'll figure it out. I left the program that day, this was July 3rd, 2019. I left that program that day and had like $60. And being an addict, that my first instinct was like, well, I just ruined that. Let's go get high. And went to the 7-Eleven, picked up a Steel Reserved, went to the library, seen a homeless guy out there. I was like, hey, do you want this phone? I'll give you this phone if you let me smoke some of that weed. So I got high that day. And then I went and got on the computer, and then I was on the computer on Facebook. My sponsor at the time, he had already known. They already called him and said, hey, your sponsee left.
Right.
We caught him. And and so I'm on the computer. He starts messaging me. He says, his name's Pops. He said, where are you at? I said, and this is the woe is me. I said, I left, Pops. I messed up. I'm gonna figure it out, though. I got this. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'll figure it out. And Pops is hard. And he said, no. He said, where are you at? I'm on my way to come get you.
Wow.
And I said, no, Pops. I said, no, Pops. I'm good. You don't need to. I'll figure it out. And then he's like, I'm on my way. Tell me where you're at right now. I said, I was like, I was like, all right, I'm at the library. He's like, all right, I'll be there in 15 minutes. Be outside. I'm like, oh, shit. So he pulls up. He's like, all right, I'm outside. Come outside. I go outside, and I have a sponsee family. So, like, other people he sponsors are, like, around my age, too. And so I call them my sponsee brothers. Anyways, he had this van. We call it the recovery van. And he pulled up to the library. He dropped two of my sponsees brothers off, had them go on foot to circle the library while he was circling the library in the van, just to make sure, I'm criminal. So he's like,
yeah.
this kid's not running. And
Pops is a bad man. Pops is a bad man.
Pops is about it. And so
I tell you.
Yeah, he already knew it was program time. So
for sure.
I wasn't trying to run though, and so I pop out. I see one of my sponsee brothers. I'm like, hey, there's Eric. Turn around, boom, there's Sebastian, and then we're all standing right there. And then all of a sudden he rolls up in the van, and I'm like, man, and from that, like, I see God working, because it's like these people care.
Yeah, they hung in with you.
These people care, and they're loving me where I'm at.
That's huge. That's huge.
Huge. And I get into the van. We get on PCH, and he's like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, oh, I feel like shit. I'm like, head down, like, shame, guilt,
Yeah.
And they're like, how are you feeling? I'm like, I'm all right. Pops just looks back, and he's like, yeah, I know. He's like, but I love you. I'm glad you're still here, right? Because a lot of people and a lot of addicts that relapse, they don't get that second chance all the time.
Right.
There's a lot of fentanyl and stuff going around. Like, people don't get that second chance when they go back out. And first thing they said is, they said, do you know how to play spades? And I said, no. And he's like, all right, get out. And we went back to Pops' house, and in South Central, and Mom, I call her Mom, his wife, him and the sponsee brothers are talking, and they're like, how do we let Mom know that we got another one?
Oh man.
We get there, and they're like, well, we'll figure it out there. And we get there, and they taught me how to play spades. and we played spades. My other two sponsee brothers came over too, and that night I got to witness firsthand what recovery looks like and how beautiful that is.
Yeah.
And how simple it could truly be if I let it. You know, and, you know, we were just, I just felt the love. And the next day, and that night I was just basically staying the night. Like, they had to figure out what they're going to do with me, whether it's send me back home or make me wait for the 30 days to go back in the program.
Yes.
And the next day was 4th of July. So I spent 4th of July in South Central at Pops' house, and July 4th, 2019 is my clean date, and
wow.
And it hasn't changed. I'm grateful for that, you know.
For sure.
It's it's crazy.
I gotta tell you, I don't know. This is the first time I'm ever hearing about Pops, let alone your story as a whole. But man, that's the type of guy. That's the type of man that I want to be. You know, somebody that stands in the gap for others, that loves them where they are, that helps show folks what the other side of life beyond addiction, beyond shame, beyond, you know, the type of person that connects people to life that's full of freedom. And so cool that you had somebody like that was with you in your time of need.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And truly, like, love Pops, and he'll always say the same thing too. But Pops is just as a product of Narcotics Anonymous. I'm more indebted to the program than to him as a person, just because the program brought me him.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
for sure. How often do you go to meetings now? And is that like is it a lot like AA in the sense that there are steps that you're working consistently in order to stay clean?
Yep. So NAAA is both a 12-step program.
Okay.
And I work the 12 steps. They're literally identical. They just use addict instead of alcoholic, and it's all inclusive. But yeah, I go to meetings twice a week. We have 2 meetings in Montrose that I'm heavily a part of. I basically run them. And because in Montrose, our meetings are so small. It's usually just me and one other person, but we keep the doors open because I know how important it is for the newcomer to have somewhere to go.
Absolutely.
And, so yeah, I go to meetings at least twice a week. If I miss one, you know, I don't start feeling squirrely, but I feel bad. You know, like my meetings are super important to me. It's, again, this NA program is the program outside of the program. I went to rehab for however many months and that's easy. It's easy to stay clean when you're in an environment to where you have to, or you go home or you go back out. And when you're court ordered, you're like, the fire's lit even higher, and so it was easy staying clean in rehab because I had everybody else around me that had to stay clean, and we were doing the same thing. Getting out was one of my biggest fears because I'd have to come home. I'd have to go to my old stomping grounds. How am I going to stay clean when I get out of this program? And that's where NA and AA come along.
Yeah. I think I got this. I share this with people all the time, with teenagers that I'm working with friends. I got this from AA, and then coincidentally I heard it years later, I think when I was watching Frozen with my daughter. I think it's in a Frozen song. But AA, one thing that I know that they say is do the next right thing. And the idea is that you're going to mess up. You're a human being. you're suffering from the disease of addiction, there's going to be times when you fail. But in those times, rather than allow that to push you back to a place of shame and control your thinking and your perspective, and have you kind of reaching for those same things, chasing that next high, instead just try to do the next right thing. And I just think there's so much truth and validity in that for anybody in life. And I know that the pandemic has taught me a lot, but one thing that I've learned even for my life is that your strength comes from your routines. It's so easy, just like you're saying, when you're in rehab, it's easy to stay clean. In life, when things are going well for you, it's easy to make good choices. It's easy to have the right perspective and the right priorities. But when life puts you on your butt and when things are falling down around you, that's when you have to have something that you can fall back on. And
Right.
in those times that you're weak, it's your routine that provides the strength you need to get through the day, through the moment, through the hardship. And I hear that in your story big time. I hear you talking about how for you it was replacing all of these cycles and habits and routines that were destructive, replacing those with ones that push you in the right direction, that hold you accountable. And man, I commend you. I commend you on that. Your story is a beautiful one, and I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to see who you are now, and just all the things that you've come from and come through. I'm in awe of that, Miggy.
It's definitely, yeah, I thank you for seeing that. I give a lot of that glory to God and my program, because like you said, when life gets hard, because life's gonna get hard, you have to have a support system and something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I found through the program and in the rooms. Huge part. The people too.
Yeah.
In the rooms is what has carried me. I've gone through some pretty traumatic and hard stuff being clean too,
Yeah.
and the biggest thing is staying clean through that. That's hard.
For sure. And your clean date was July 4th, 2019, so you've been clean for 3 years now.
3 years.
You've shared a lot about what your life looked like in the time before, in the throes of addiction, when the disease was in charge of your mind and your decision-making in your life. As someone who's sober, what does life look like for you now?
Life is beautiful today. And I say that with the ups and downs.
Yeah.
I'm able to find that silver lining and stuff today and truly believe it. Today, with being clean, and I always say this, my biggest asset in life is my clean date today, because everything stems from that. When I'm clean, I'm able to go to work, have a job, and show up. When I'm clean, I'm able to talk with my family members in a healthy way and have them want to be a part of my life and actually want to be a part of theirs. When I'm clean, I'm able to help people. And that's one of the things that I never thought would be something that I take not pride in, but like I love today.
Yeah.
I love helping people because I'm in a position to help people now.
100%.
My life is they always say in the room, it's like, get clean and you'll get your life that you would have never, like wildest dreams. And I think I have more than that. I'm overpaid. I'm overpaid in Narcotics Anonymous. I'm overpaid in recovery because a lot of the times, and I have to stop thinking about it this way, but sometimes I think, like, I don't know if I deserve this, but I do deserve it. I've worked hard, and I've come a long way for the things I have in life today. And it wasn't just by me.
Yeah.
It wasn't just by me. And of course I got the material things. Like today I'm blessed to say that I own a house. I bought my first house last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Huge.
I've got a car in my name that I actually make my payments, you know?
Yes.
And those are like the little things, right?
But they matter.
They matter. And then the big things for me today is that I'm a part of my family's life today. I'm not just there. When I was using, I was just there, and I was just a family member. Today I feel a part of that family because I'm able to be there for that family. And my mom passed away while I just got a year clean, and I have custody of my little sister today.
Wow.
I took custody of my little sister, and I'm raising my 13-year-old little sister today, and so grateful for that.
That's incredible.
My boss trusts me, right? Like I'm here right now at my boss's daughter's house, basically house sitting while she's out, and I get I have my own door code, like, you know, like,
yeah,
like it's little things like that they trust me with the work key, you know, with the shop keys. They trust me with, you know, like it's truly crazy, you know, and it's mind blowing how much stuff. I call them normies, but like average people don't look at it like that. But for me, coming from where I was from, like it goes deep, man.
Yeah.
It goes deep. It goes deep. It goes as deep as I'm able to go and buy food today if I want. If I want McDonald's, I can go and buy whatever I want on the menu today and not think about it.
Yeah.
If I want a new phone, I probably could afford that thing today.
And you have the respect and the trust and the inclusion of people around you. Man, that's huge. That's huge. Yeah, that's what life is all about. It's all about these moments of redemption where you can look at it, you know, where you were, and years later see where you are now, and how far you've come and how hard you had to work to get there. And there's a certain level of satisfaction that comes from within you, that just knowing that you made it to the other side and that you have made good on so many of the things that seemed impossible before.
Right.
Wow. That's so beautiful, Miggy. Well, you mentioned normies. I certainly qualify. I deal with and work with and have been a resource to folks who are struggling with addiction the last 10, 12 years in some form or another, here and there, not in any consistent way, but just people that come in and out of my life that need to be connected to resources or need help. What's something that those of us that don't deal with addiction personally, what's something that we don't know or realize about addiction, or something that society often gets wrong that you think would be important for us to know?
You know, it's hard because I'm on both sides now.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to answer that question because I know there's people out there that don't want it. They just don't want it. And those people, I don't want to say you can never change, but there's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
And what I would have to say is that if it's a loved one, love them. Love them for where they're at, because truly it's not you. It never is. You know, you can't, it's not something you did that got them there.
Right.
And it's not something you can do to get them out.
Yeah.
But loving them and reminding them and praying, you know, and reminding them that you want that for them and that they should want it for them because they deserve it is so important.
Yeah.
My family never gave up on me while I was using. They gave me that tough love, which tough love is, I love that.
Yeah.
It's huge because I think people can, my mom, for example, I love my mom. She was an enabler. She didn't kick me out of her house when she should have. You know, and that's also something. Don't be, as much as you love them, try not to enable them because that can keep them going longer.
Yeah.
That tough love is something that we need sometimes to give, you know, that little extra kick in the ass.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like I said, this is life or death. Like this is serious stuff.
It is.
So the longer you prolong it for anybody is just another day that you're risking their life.
Yeah.
And they're risking their life. I don't want to say you're risking their life because it's not on you. It's never on that person that, you know, is trying to help someone. But
yeah,
it's, you know, don't spend too much time trying to understand it. Just try to spend more time accepting it and then going from there. Because I think a lot of people, normies, try to wrap their head around it and truly can't because they're also a human being and they're like, well, why the hell don't you put it down?
Yeah.
And if you've never, and it goes as deep as to like genes, like it's,
yeah, for sure.
It's like if you don't have an addictive personality, you can't fully grasp it. And that's okay. That's okay if you don't fully grasp it, but don't be so quick to judge it at that point.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I think for a lot of people it's a generational thing. Yes, you have the ability to make choices and decisions for yourself. Yes, genes are a part of it. Yes, it can be a generational curse. All of those things are true. Yes, sometimes it's trauma-based. And I know that people who do enable their loved ones, it usually comes from a good place of wanting to rescue, wanting to help, wanting to be there.
Most definitely, yeah.
But like you're saying, I think just having that self-awareness and realizing where the line is between tough love and enabling, and knowing when to offer a place to sleep, when to offer financial support, and when to pull those things away. And, you know, as someone not in that world, I would think it would be very important, even for people who have loved ones, to find a support group, to find counseling, to learn how to offer that tough love rather than enabling.
Most definitely. I think, yeah, because it's always out of love, right? Everybody's trying to help that person because they love that person and they don't want to see them throw their life away. But definitely you have to find that balance to where you're not giving too much of yourself, because also what could happen is a family member could give so much of themselves into trying to make another family member better that when it's not going their way and after they put so much forth into it, that they start to grow resentment towards that loved one that's struggling, right? Because it's like, why aren't you? I gave you a place to stay. I fed you. I gave you money. I took you to rehab. Like, why? And then
why isn't it working?
And then it turns into, why aren't you getting clean for me? And that's where it gets messy. That's where it gets messy because it's,
they have to get clean for themselves.
At the end of the day, They can't do it for you.
Yeah.
I couldn't have gotten clean for my mom, my sister, my grandma, my exes. I couldn't have gotten clean for nobody but for myself.
And those are
at the end
people
of the
that
day.
you love. Those are people that you love with all of your heart that have been there for you. That's your family. And
Right.
and still it has to be for you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if there's someone listening to this, Miggy, that is in the middle of their story and their struggle and their battle with addiction, what advice would you give them if they're at that place that you've talked about where they don't like what their life looks like and they know that there's a possibility of something greater, but they're struggling with that consistency and that follow through? What advice would you give that person?
I would tell them, you're loved.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you're loved. But and if you don't think your family loves you anymore, or you don't think your girlfriend loves you anymore, your boyfriend loves you anymore, I love you. I love you because you are me.
Yeah.
And I know how real it gets, and I know how hard it gets, and I know how bad you want this. But you have to put that extra foot forward, and you have to really want it, and you have to do whatever. You have to be willing to do whatever.
Yeah.
And that looks different for other people. So my recovery might look different from another person's, but you have to figure out what's going to work for you. And also you have to be super mindful of what is working for you and what hasn't worked for you.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because like I said, in and out of 5 rehabs, each time I went back out, I learned something. Okay, this obviously didn't work for me. Or maybe it would work if I actually worked it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's an important thing for family members to hear, because family members whose loved ones struggle with addiction, they often, when they see their loved one in and out of rehab, I think they often feel like none of it is sticking. But for you to share that every one of those times that it didn't work, there were seeds that were planted. There were things that you learned. It was all a part of the process that eventually got you to a place of healing.
Exactly. Yeah, no. And it took a lot of self-reflection to realize that.
Yeah.
But with this last time of me getting clean, I was able to look back at it and be like, okay, well, I went to rehab this first time and I got out and I thought that I could just smoke weed, and then that turned into drugs again pretty quick. So that obviously doesn't work. Next time I went to rehab, I realized I got out and thought I would just take Suboxone, realized that that was also a mind-altering substance, and then eventually went back to drugs. That didn't work. I went to rehab again, and I said that I got a sponsor, but I didn't call him. I said I was working the steps, but I never really started. And I go to meetings, but I don't pay attention. That didn't work. Each time I went in and out, I realized something that, and it wasn't that it wasn't working. I wasn't working.
Yeah.
I wasn't taking anything serious. I wasn't there to truly change, and I wasn't ready.
Yeah. That's so good. And we've talked a lot about your recovery, about your life before, about your life now. But I want to switch gears because you also are a recording artist. Even when I knew you at age 14, 13, 12, you were already freestyling. You already were writing raps. You already had a love for music. That's always been a part of you, and now you're starting to really work at that and realize that as more than just a pipe dream, and a lot of work and years and development and growth has gone into that. When did your love for music begin, and growing up, what artists inspired you the most?
So I think music has always been a love for me from the get. I mean,
yeah.
It goes back as far as, like, my mom had, like, I don't remember if it was a Grand Am or a Pontiac, but it was a red one. And she'd buy CDs, and she'd bump like Akon, Baby Bash, Bone Thugs, and
Good
that
stuff.
was the jams. You know,
Yeah.
like that was awesome. Like,
Yeah.
and going back to when we got our first computer, like I was a LimeWire junkie.
I can't tell you how
downloading
many
everything.
computers I've crashed with LimeWire.
Dude,
back in the day.
like I was downloading everything. So I always loved music. Even when I was young, I would always sing along with songs that I loved. And I mean, I think mainly family members and people around me would be like, "You can sing pretty good.
Yeah.
Like you sound like them." So I was essentially good at mimicking, but I loved it. You know, I love singing. And so with that, I mean, in grade school, or I think middle school is when I started. Middle school, I did choir. I joined choir, you know, because at that time you were able to sign up for which extracurricular or whatever they call it, you know.
Electives
and so
or whatever.
I did choir,
Yeah.
show choir, and that was fun for me. We didn't sing the best songs, but it was still fun for me.
Yeah.
And then at age 13 is when I started rapping, and it wasn't anything serious, but it was when I started like rhyming and realized I could rhyme.
Yeah.
I had a teacher named Miss Kahoot, and she was my reading and language arts teacher. And I remember one week we were doing poetry, and she's like, okay, she showed us all these different types of poetry, right? Rhyme poetry, haikus, you know, stuff like that. And I picked we had to do like a few of them and present them to her. So I chose rhyme poetry, and essentially they were raps, you know.
Yeah.
I did A-B rhyme poetry, and it was super easy for me. And she liked them so much, and I even cursed in them, but with my little curse words, I would put stars, so she knew what she knew what it was, and she hung them up. She hung them up because she liked them.
That's huge.
And from there, I realized, like, yeah, I can rhyme. I can do that for sure. On and off with that ever since then, you know, writing to beats and stuff like that, and dealing with other people that also did the same. And that was forever. But in my addiction, that's one of the things addiction took from me was, you know, me doing music. I thought I was doing music, and I would write and I would freestyle, but I was so high that nothing ever came of it. It was just that. So when I got clean, that's when I started taking this serious. So let's see, I think it's been about 2 years now. 2 years is that I've been taking music serious, like super serious.
Yeah. And what artists did you really look up to or inspire you as a kid?
As a kid, you know, it would be like 50 Cent and Snoop Dogg and Bone Thugs. My mom listened to Eazy-E a lot. Akon, I really liked Akon just because he was super melodic with it. You know, I listened to a lot of that.
Yeah.
That older stuff.
Yeah, I remember for me, I think I was in first grade, maybe even kindergarten. I'd have to look at the year. But when Space Jam came out, the movie Space Jam with Michael Jordan, and I remember I got the soundtrack, the CD for Christmas because I love Space Jam. I always loved basketball, my favorite sport. And it was all hip-hop and R&B. And I'd never really been exposed to music like that. And I almost had like, even as I remember as like a first grader thinking like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, where has this been? Like, why have people not told me this was a thing? And I was that weird kid in third grade on the playground throwing up the West Side symbol. I knew Tupac and loved his music, and all the other little country kids in my town were like, what is a 2-pack? I don't they didn't. And even now, I had a very similar experience. I had a teacher in elementary school that would really encourage my writing, and that introduced us to poetry. And even now on my desk at work, I have a Bible, and I have The Rose That Grew from Concrete, Tupac's poetry book. And I read something from it every day just to stay connected to that side of me, that creativity. It's interesting how that starts so young, and how the encouragement of one teacher can really put you in touch with that creative side of yourself that you may not have known was there otherwise.
That part, yeah. That's that's crazy that you put it like that. I never thought about that. But I think my teacher, and I remember her name and everything. You know,
for sure.
She sparked that for sure.
Yeah, shout out to my third grade teacher, Mrs. Bigsby. Told me I could grow up to be a writer one day.
Let's go.
Still remember that. Still remember that. So who are you into today? What hip hop artists, what musical acts do you kind of look at that inspire you today?
You know, I listen to a lot of, not underground, but pretty underground nowadays. I listen to Saba, Smino. I listen to Baby Keem. I listen to, of course, the GOATs, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole.
Love J. Cole.
Tyler, the Creator. I like Tyler, the Creator, a lot.
Who is actually very creative. He's a good creator.
Right, yeah. Mac Miller.
Yeah.
All day.
Rest in power.
Miller. Yes. Yeah. I listen to a lot. I listen to SZA, Isaiah Rashad.
Yeah.
Old school Absol. I listen to it quite a bit. And nowadays I've been listening to a lot of different genres. Like I'm tapping into the old genres that I used to listen to, and so I'm getting pretty diverse with everything that I'm listening to.
Yeah, that's cool. I think one of my on my Mount Rushmore for me personally, my two favorite music artists of all time would be Tupac and Bob Marley. Good chance if I'm riding in my truck, one of those two things are bumping. To this day, my daughter, 6 years old, can sing the words to most Bob Marley songs, and I'm super proud of that.
That's right.
I think an artist that might be one of my favorites in the game today is Toby Nwigwe. Do you know him?
Yep.
Yeah. I just love his vibe and his realness and his soul that comes through in his music. And I don't know, something, some artists you put on their music and they make you want to write. They make you want to pick up a pen. They make you want to get back on your grind and record and write some poetry and get some lines on paper. And he's one that does that for me for sure.
Man, he's always pumping out stuff too. Him and his wife.
His wife is so cool. Yeah. I love that he always shouts out his wife in his music too. Like they do it together. Right. That's so cool. That is definitely a couple goals right there.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah, he's super cool too.
So Miggy, share with us. You now you've built a playlist for us that are listening. We got a lot of artists that we can look up. But how do we look you up? What do you have that's already out there? What are you working on currently? How can people listen to your music?
So you can look me up on all major music streaming platforms: Amazon Music, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, Tidal. I'm on everything. You can just look me up as Miggy C. So that's MIGGY space capital C with a dot.
I didn't know about the dot. The dot is important.
The dot's important. I'm weird about stuff like that. So it's more of my OCD than anything. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just there has to be a dot if there's a single letter. So
for sure. But, and you're on Tidal, so you're like all the way official.
Yeah, I'm as official as a whistle.
Yeah, I started to introduce you as an up and coming recording artist, and I scrapped that because I'm like, nah, I can find this man's music online. I can listen to him now. He's not up and coming. People need to know about him, but he's already here.
That's right. Yeah. And what's cool is it's so easy to do it nowadays that I hate that I slept on myself for so long but it's all part of the journey. You can Google me too. You can Google Miggy C and all my stuff will pop up.
Word. And what are you working on currently?
Ooh. So I got my first, I want to say studio project that's coming out. It's going to be coming out the beginning of fall. It's called You're Right, I'm Sorry, YRIS. And it's just, I'm a simp, Wes. So like, I got a lot of relationships and stories from those relationships. So I'm just writing an EP, and it's an EP. It's going to consist of 6 songs.
Cool.
Deciding right now whether we're going to do all 6 songs or if we're going to do the first 5 songs and then release the deluxe afterwards.
Okay. And can people go ahead and pre-order this?
Not yet.
Okay.
No. So stay tuned. The pre-order is going to be coming very soon. I'm actually dropping my first music videos along with this project too. I've got 2 music videos in the works.
Awesome.
For the single. The single's called Next, so be on the lookout for that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very well thought out project. Because I got everything on there. Like,
yeah.
It's about relationships, but I mean the title says it all. You're right, I'm sorry, and it's just gonna be super cohesive. The songs are just gonna go together. It's gonna sonically sound perfect, and then I've also got I don't want to say skits in there, but like old school, there's recordings in there. I picked up a new habit since I got clean. If I'm having a well thought out conversation with somebody, I start pressing record on my phone because I want to get I want to capture that real emotion and that real conversation.
Yeah.
And I sifted through all my voice memos to find something that transitions into each song. So
that's super
it's
dope.
A very well thought out project. For sure.
I love that idea. That is old school, and I miss music like that. Music that matters. It's still there. You can find it. It's just not. It's not as prevalent in mainstream radio and music anymore, but it's there. And if you're hearing this, definitely look up Miggy. Find him on Facebook. Follow him. That way you can pre-order his EP when it comes out. You're right. I'm sorry. I'll certainly be purchasing that, and I'll add that to the rotation for sure, man.
Yes.
I told Miggy before we hit record. I went back today, and I see you. I've seen you post for years on Facebook. I keep up with you when I see you post stuff, and I've listened to music you put out. But today I went back since I knew we were recording tonight, and I just listened to all the stuff that you had on your YouTube page, and it's so cool to see the progression from when you started to now, and how you've evolved and grown as an artist. And I just have to think now that in hearing your story, how well that syncs up your growth as an artist with your growth as a person.
Tremendously.
Yeah.
There's always going to be those artists that have to, and me too. I'll speak from, stories. I'm storytelling at the end of the day, but a lot of my stuff nowadays is from experience, and you can't get more deeper than that. It's from firsthand experience. I'm speaking. It's coming from the source. And so it's just a beautiful thing that I'm able to turn my pain into stories and share those stories with people in a way that they can hear it. And at the end of the day, even recovery and music, I write in hopes that someone's gonna hear it, connect with it, and realize, hey, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
You know?
That's beautiful, and that's the goal of being creative. That's what creativity does, and I think that's a wonderful thing. My guest tonight has been Miggy C from La Familia Music Group out of Montrose, Colorado. Find him on Facebook, find him on social media, follow him on YouTube. Get ready for his upcoming EP. Miggy, absolute honor and pleasure not just to do this with you tonight, but to know you, to have this conversation. Man, I'm fired up just having this conversation with you, seeing where life has brought you, seeing how you've survived and overcome. Powerful story. Awesome young man, and I love you, brother. I appreciate you.
I love you too, Wes. Thank you, dude. Thank you for having me on here. Like, for real, it's crazy to think how far we go back, you know?
Yeah. And it's, we're a small show, but we're growing. We have, for some reason, we have a following in India, of all places. I think India makes up like 39% of our listener base. So if nothing else, you might get a couple of purchases for your EP from India. So that's pretty.
Shout out to India, man.
Yeah,
Shout out to India.
It's my goal. It's my goal to get on a billboard in India. That's at the end of the day. I don't care if I ever reach any level of fame in the States, but put me on a billboard in India. That's what I want.
This is gonna be the most popping podcast in India. They're gonna be like, you heard of this one with Wes?
Yeah.
Wes is the guy.
My sister tells me that she thinks it's because, for some reason, there's a segment of people in India that have decided to learn English by listening to a guy from Alabama in his shed. So I don't know.
That's the way to start,
I guess it's possible. But hey, Miggy, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Of course. Thank you guys. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to everybody listening, because I hope I didn't ramble, and I hope you may have heard something.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's all for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I can't either. It's back in the house and out of the shed for me. Thanks again for listening to episode 46. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and review. It really does help. If you have any paranormal experiences, opinions about sports, or politics that you'd like to share, you can email the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Look for us on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, the Good Pods app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to follow us on Twitter at InTheShed4. Tune in again next week when we'll hit the headlines, preview the SEC West, and investigate together the mystery of the Georgia Guidestones. This has been In the Shed with Wes Anderson, the best news show in the land covering politics, sports, and the paranormal. Have an adventurous and fulfilling weekend. I'll catch you tools later. Peace out, Boy Scout. Meemaw, we made it!